to the question and answer part of this session, because otherwise my time will be up and not a question will have been asked. Yes.
Hello, Patrick. Thank you very much for coming here. One of my favourite episodes is Best of Both Worlds, and I'd like to ask what it was like playing Locutus of Borg.
Thank you, and thank you for your welcome. You know, actually, just before I answer this question, we really do have to thank the organizers, because this is an absolutely magnificent event that they've staged here. Probably the best ever in the history of Trek fandom. Largely, my recollection of playing Locutus of Borg was that it was uncomfortable. The Borg costumes were, it would seem, designed to make the actor's life as miserable as possible. But the uniform itself, and can you imagine what it's like carrying out bodily functions in one of those? But the uniform, momentito, the uniform itself was not as uncomfortable as that one sequence when Picard had been brought back to the Enterprise and was in the process of being deborged, and you saw me I've been in the United States for too long, semi-naked, and all of those tubes and so forth were actually attached to my skin. It wasn't the sticking of them on, it was the unsticking of them that was the problem. But the Borg episodes were very, very important to us, because it seemed that we had finally found a satisfactory enemy for the heroes of the Enterprise, and I think that we developed all of those stories just spectacularly. I'm delighted, by the way, that Rick Berman was here this afternoon. Rick rarely attends these events, and I'm thrilled to see him here. He's a man that I have worked with so closely in the last 7 years, someone for whom I have enormous respect and affection, and who, I have to say this, because I developed something of a reputation very early on in the series of wanting to talk in detail about some of the things I had to say. So at the end of a day's work, which could be quite late, I would go home and I would settle down with the following day's work, and almost immediately I would see things that maybe I didn't like or something I thought should be changed, and I would pick up the phone. And I have to tell you that not once in the 7 years, and even it meant calling in the middle of dinner, did Rick Berman ever fail to take one of my calls. And
that's my question.
Yes. Now I have to be very careful how I answer this question. I am entertaining to dinner tonight Jonathan and Brent and LeVar and his wife and Rick and the whole crew. We're all going to be having dinner together this evening. Your front room, my dear. Did you not know that? So I know word of whatever I say now will be filtered back to them by the speed of sound. Well, thank you for your compliments. And
Gobsmacked.
I beg your pardon?
You're gobsmacked.
Well, no, it's just that I never quite know what to say on this. It's true. One was under some That's not what I meant by it's true. What I meant was that one was under some constraint to keep somewhat fit. You know, those spacesuits are not particularly flattering, and it was, I think, not my idea that I should be disrobed so completely as I was in that episode. However, it was, I think, quite a tasteful shot, and could not have offended many. The answer is unequivocally yes, and in the following way. Without exception, every one of my colleagues have, during the past 7 years, made my working life a virtual purgatory by continually creating situations and making remarks and doing actions which would make me laugh so helplessly that it was very difficult to get on with the job. And in fact, Michael Dorn reminded me of this the other night when five of them surprised me by turning up at my hotel. I had no idea they did turn up at my hotel at 10 minutes to 1 in the morning. But friendship can overcome such things. And Michael reminded me how when I was directing my final episode as a director, which was, I think, the penultimate episode of the series, the one about the Marquis, which had the Bajoran woman, whatever you said, that's right. But I do remember that it was the actress Michelle Forbes. That there was a scene in a bar where it was a complicated setup, and I was, as always in Star Trek, under great pressure of time. And of course, being still a fairly new director, I was wanting every shot to look perfect and brilliant and beautiful, so I was trying to move quickly and yet at the same time take enormous care. In this shot, it involved Brent Spiner and Michael Dorn entering this seedy-looking bar in some far outpost of the Federation, looking around the bar, walking up through the customs of the bar itself, saying a couple of lines, looking around and walking out. Well, these guys gave me such a hard time because they questioned everything I asked them to do. They sang songs, they told jokes. They amused the crew, they went through all kinds of elaborate and sometimes vulgar shtick. And it was absolute agony for me because, of course, the one person who had to laugh most was me. And they were reminding me of my incredible discomfort that afternoon when they did that. I adore and love and cherish every one of my fellow crew members because they are simply the most wonderful and delightful group of people that I have ever worked with, and they helped to make 7 years, which was sometimes a little uncomfortable, more than tolerable. They made it look like a perpetual and feel like a perpetual party with one's very best friends. I've no complaints.
Anyway, I just have a question. When you and Beverly have breakfast, do you have them white tea set? How do you pour it? I have a replica set and I can't do it. When you have breakfast with Beverly on The Next Generation, you have a white tea set with a funny shape. I have a replica set. How do you pour it?
That's very interesting. No, it's interesting because one of the very last things I did was to ask Jim Meese, whose name you will recognize. Jim Meese is the set decorator. And so all things like teapots and so forth were his responsibility. Where I could get one, because I thought that it was so attractive. And I also wanted it as a memento of the series, you know. Did you ever actually see me pouring tea out of it?
Not that I can remember.
Yeah, well, there you are. That's probably Well, I guess I wasn't pouring tea because I only had eyes for Beverly. Actually, some of those scenes were some of the most delightful for both of us. I was always especially pleased whenever one of those Beverly breakfast scenes came up. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Patrick. I'm from Germany. Is it true that you will come to Germany next week?
I'm getting on a plane from Munich on Monday morning, yes.
And Berlin?
And Berlin, yes. We'll be in Germany until Friday or Saturday. And because there's a grave danger that we may have more opportunities to show this relationship developing, I'm not going to preempt it by talking about it now. I do know that Whoopi has a theory as to where this relationship originated, and I'm certainly not going to tell you what that theory is, because it's a very charming one. But have you seen yet the movie Generations? I wasn't asking all of you. I was asking the questioner. Well, you'll learn a great deal about the character, a great deal more about the character of Guinan in that. So see it. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
In the episode Starship Mine, we saw Picard take a more physical role. Would you like to do more of that in the future?
Would you remind me what Starship Mine was about? Because I've got to... Come on, guys, there are 178 episodes. How am I going to remember all of them?
Starship Mine was the episode where Picard was trapped on the Enterprise with a bunch of terrorists.
The saddle, yes, now I remember. The saddle. Yes, that was my Bruce Willis impersonation. Die Hard 4. Wasn't that a terrific episode? I really enjoyed that episode, and it was fun to have so much action stuff to play. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it enormously. Now, what was the question? Am I going to do more? Well, actually, one of the scripts that I'm considering right now is a major action movie script, which will be fun because I haven't done much of that. Just so long as I don't have to do any sword fighting, because my days of fencing, I hope, are over. Yes, sir.
Hello, Patrick. Hello. Welcome back to this side of the pond. A couple of days ago, you mentioned that while you were in America, you picked up a little bit of the accent over there. Have you managed to pass on any of your little British foibles to the rest of the American crew?
Oh, yes, the undermining work has been going on all the time. Yes, it made me uneasy. From time to time when I've been back in London, taxi drivers have often said to me, "Whoa, I see you've lost your accent then, haven't you?" I mean, really, no, it didn't take long, did it? And I've never quite understood. And I was at the BBC on Thursday, and first one presenter, and then I think, well, I appeared on Blue Peter, which was a great thrill for me. You know, they didn't give me a badge, no. Will you please all write in? But it really was a thrill because, of course, Blue Peter is one of the great institutions of British television. Having now appeared on Jack and Ori, did you know I did Jack and Ori once? No, you didn't know that, did you? Yes, the know-alls up there. Having appeared on Jack and Ori, and Blue Peter, and Star Trek, what else is there left to do, I ask myself. But it's true, yes, I mean, in different ways, some American friends who have become very close to me, yes, it always amuses me to hear not just changes of accent, but the uses of British idiom. I do have one good friend over there who's absolutely charmed by the way we English use the word shaft. Now, I didn't know there was anything particularly British about shaft, but apparently Americans don't use that term. So that's one that she has now adopted for herself. Michael Dorn has been taking from me English lessons, that is pronunciation, from the very beginning, because it is my ambition, which is quite close now to being realized, that I will turn Michael Dorn into the Noel Coward of America. And I'll not be satisfied until I can hear Michael Dorn singing, "Mad dogs and Englishmen." And Actually, Michael has a really terrific English accent. It's very fine. My last movie, which I filmed in New York all the way through the autumn, this year into the winter, I finally had to commit myself to an American accent because I played an American dance hall instructor, and it's causing me some unease because, of course, in an entirely American company, to be playing an American role was somewhat intimidating. I have a fear that I might spend the next 3 months inside a looping studio re-recording it all. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening.
I'd just like to know, whenever the Enterprise is going into battle, why is it the first thing that always happens is starboard power coupling goes down?
You know, it's so extraordinary you should ask that question. Because it is a question that has kept me awake at night. You know, there have been hours when I should have been resting on recreation, and you know, I have been crawling through those Jeffries tubes, just trying to solve the problem of that starboard coupling. What can I say? You know, I think the charm about that is that, you know, because Star Trek is essentially an allegorical show, I think what we take from that is that nothing is ever perfect. We are all flawed in some way, even the starboard coupling of the Star Trek.
I just thought it was like, you know, Scotty would say about the old Enterprise. It was wired up like a Christmas tree, you know.
Yes, that was not the case of the Enterprise D, which of course is with us no longer.
Unfortunately.
What? What? Oh. Oh, well, there are a lot of other things I could tell you. I am sorry if I spoiled that for you. How foolish of me. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi.
Earlier on, when Gates McFadden was up, she was talking about yours and Beverly's relationship, and she told us her ideas on it. What I'd like to know is how you would like to see it go.
Are we talking about the relationship between Captain Picard and Beverly Crusher?
Yeah.
How I would like to see it go? Well, I mean, we know how it's going to go, don't we? Don't we?
Do we?
Of course we do. Don't you pay attention? Haven't you seen the final episode of the series?
Yeah.
All in good time? Then you know how it's going to go.
But that never really happened, did it?
We got married. Beverly and Picard got married and it didn't work out.
Yeah, why?
Why what? Why didn't it work out?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why it didn't work out. Okay, right. I'll tell you why the marriage between Beverly Crusher and Captain Picard didn't work out. Because she squeezed the toothpaste from the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an important announcement to make. There is here in the auditorium an individual from the television show Blue Peter who has just had sent to me a badge. brought out on the same day.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I've recently discovered Shakespeare, and I was wondering how long your love for Shakespeare's been around.
Well, I'm very happy for you that that this is a new love, and it's one thing that I can guarantee: it will be a lifelong love. Note the alliteration again. And it's often made me reflect. I have actually spent a lot of the last 7 years brooding, meditating on certain aspects of my childhood. It was something to do with living in California and being so far away from the West Riding of Yorkshire. I used to spend time, actually spending so many hours in aeroplanes, I used to close my eyes and fix on a fact, something that I knew about my childhood, and then try to let my memory spread backwards, forwards, and sideways to give some reality to that memory. I think that it was BBC Radio that first introduced me to Shakespeare. I'm a child of radio, and still radio, I would say, plays 90% of the my attention to media entertainment. I would say 90% of the time I listen to radio, and only the other 10% do I watch television. I love the radio. And one of the charms about living in the United States is that, thank you, is that there are so many extraordinary and fascinating radio stations. But here I am now back in the wonderful world of Radio 4 and Radio 3. And all of these multitude of other stations that didn't exist when I went away. So I heard my first Shakespeare on BBC Radio, and when I was about 10 or 11, the curate of my local church, I was a choir boy, gave me a complete works of Shakespeare. So when there were plays on the radio, I used to follow along. I have a brother who is a good deal older than me, and he was in the RAF during the war. And when he came home on leave, and I was very small, my brother had met somebody in the RAF who loved Shakespeare, and my brother had also been attracted to it. And instead of reading Winnie the Pooh or whatever to me for bednight stories, he would read Macbeth or Hamlet or King Lear or whatever. And I'll tell you a story about that. You know, I was brought up in the West Riding of Yorkshire. I spoke not just with an accent, but I spoke with dialect, which is that I used different words. So when I had to change the way I spoke, it wasn't just a case of adjusting the sounds. It was a case of learning other words. I mean, for instance, when I went to a friend's house to see if he was coming out to play, I would say to him, "At a leg it are." Now, lakin is a very, very old English word, meaning playing. In fact, a long time ago, actors were known as lakers in the north of England. So, one night, my brother was reading to me a soliloquy of Hamlet's, and as a result of that reading, until I was really quite old, and certainly when I should have known better, I believe that there was one passage in Hamlet which was about coal mining. And of course I came from a semi-coal mining area of West Yorkshire. And it was this passage that went as follows. Something, 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 when we have shuffled off this mortal coil. You're already there before me. You see, I pronounced the word C-O-A-L, coil. But the word in Shakespeare was actually written, though I didn't see it C-O-I-L. And instead of the word what the line actually means by shuffle off this mortal coil is when we die. But instead of shuffle, what I heard was shovel. So, until I was about 17, I thought that there was this passage in Hamlet which had to do with shoveling coal. I'll tell you something else as well. It's confession time again. You know, I lived in this small mill mining town in West Riding of Yorkshire. I left school when I was 15. I'm a secondary modern school boy. And for years and years and years, I believed that there were two colleges, one called Magdalen and one called Magdalene. I didn't know that Magdalene was pronounced Magdalen until one day I actually used the wrong term, and to roars of outrageous laughter, it was pointed out to me how ignorant I was. So, who cares? I also happen to know that there are at least 3 chancellors of universities who are such addicts of the series that they organize their evening schedules around it. I know there was one recent chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who was an enormous fan of the show, and of course you all know that Dr. Stephen Hawking, when he was in Los Angeles, asked to visit the Star Trek sets, which is probably about the biggest compliment we could be paid. So that aspect of the show has kept my attention throughout, and it is the multi-layered nature of Star Trek that has been so exciting to me. As for the second part of the question, well, let's see what I can do. I need 2 hands, first of all. Make it so. I'm getting in the feel of it now. Mr. Crusher, and number 1, you have the bridge. Number 1, prepare a ready team. Ready team and away team.